What's Trending, presented by Feastbox, donating 10% of every order to Full of Hope, a charitable organization that feeds hungry families. Our friend Brett McMurphy is back at it again for the Action Network, reporting yesterday that the Big 12 Conference has no appetite to add any of the remaining Pac-4 schools or San Diego State. He continues in that quote, "We have no interest in doing anything," source said. "We're done." Jarom, is being done the right move for the Big 12 Conference if they stop at 16 teams?
I think right now it is. Now, they don't want to add Cal or Stanford. They don't want to add Oregon State or Washington State. They don't want to add San Diego State. Who else is out there that's interesting? Now, you look to the ACC. There's obviously disgruntled teams there led by Florida State. I'm not sure they're looking at the Big 12 as like the most viable option there, but it all depends on the TV contract situation. So as we explained, as we understood from Brett McMurphy, who dug into the contract there, ESPN said, yes, we'll go full share P5 ads up to 16. Fox said, we'll go up to 14. Apparently, we haven't heard this report, but it is assumed that they said on 15 and 16, yes, we will go our 11.7 on top of the 20 mil starting in 2025 with the additions of, we assume that Arizona was sort of that 14th team, if you will, Arizona State and Utah. Now, could they, let's say Florida State, Miami, and NC State, a handful of those disgruntled kind of 7 or whatever that came out this summer. Let's say they were like, hey, we're serious. We want to be in your league. And we'll buy out the ACC, which feels crazy. We haven't heard official numbers on that, but one report said it was like 30 mil per year. Like, the Big 12 is not the conference to join to do that. It would be the Big 10 because they're shelling out $70 million a year, full share, but they're not for Oregon and Washington. And I don't think Florida State right now, they could be valued as much as Oregon and Washington, but they're not a full shares team, it would seem, in my opinion. So I don't think there's a league out there that's willing to take on the Big 12 would be willing. I don't think the ACC teams would want to do that, given if that buyout is that much. UConn's sitting there. They're a G5 ad. They're not a full share kind of group at this point. Is ESPN and Fox willing to do that for a football team that gives you nothing, but a men's basketball team that could give you a national title like they did last year?
Yeah.
San Diego State, I would be interested in the future. But like right now, as is, I think we're good. I think in a couple of years we could see which leagues TV contracts end and go like 2 years before that, and that's when kind of the movement typically happens.
I want to add 2 words to the end of the quote. For now. We're done for now. Because
still open for business.
Things can, as we have seen just last week, change very quickly.
Is the open sign still lit up for the Big 12? Could someone go to the Big 12 offices and see?
Some of the neon may have died a little bit, but I think primarily the letters are still open. Even they're saying, hey, we're closed. The open sign's still kind of on, right? So we're done for now is what I believe. And I've had a number of people ask me, Spencer, why didn't the Big 12 add San Diego State? Brett Yormark's been so vocal about wanting to get into California and the West Coast and the Pacific time zone. And I stepped back and I thought, okay, if I were Brett Yormark, how would I assess San Diego State right now? And then I immediately thought about the madness and the dumpster fire that they just went through with the Mountain West Conference and with the almost Pac-12 invitation. And then I thought about the price tag, and I thought if I were a businessman right now, I would not take them right now just because of how that whole thing was handled. It was terrible. It was a nightmare, and it was a nightmare for San Diego State, but it is what it is at this point. They can't get away from it. And so I thought, okay, if I were him and I were a businessman looking at a $34 million price tag, and then the bad publicity that is surrounding San Diego State because of that whole mess of a show with the Mountain West Conference.
Of a show, nice.
I wouldn't do it. I get it. And up until last Friday, I was like, yeah, let's get into California. Let's take Southern California with San Diego State. Let's do it. If Arizona State and Utah don't want to join, fine. Yeah, give the invitation to San Diego State. But again, I believe that the Big 12 Conference made the right move. Adding San Diego State right now is not the additional move. UConn, I agree with you. There's no rush.
Doesn't need
It
it.
doesn't have to happen right now.
Why?
At some point, great, whatever. Maybe their football program builds in a little bit, and they show something, and then they become a little bit more attractive.
Probably not, let's be honest.
We already know what their basketball team is capable
They just
of.
added Arizona men's basketball. Like, you don't need
It's
UConn
true.
men's basketball.
Like,
You
yeah.
just Arizona historically, unbelievable. Like, if
Yeah.
you're looking for a men's basketball ad, you got it. Like, you don't. But it's again, men's basketball is not dictating any
Yeah.
of this. This is all football TV contracts. It's not men's basketball TV contracts that do anything. Your Mark understands, though, at some point maybe this is unique. Maybe the men's basketball deal is a different deal
Maybe
on
it becomes
different
more
networks.
lucrative,
Like-
depending on the network and how they value basketball.
Could be, because then you're like, well, we are the next best thing after the G League, like this league. Like, we're the third tier
Yeah.
of quality in a group in the United States. I don't know. I'm with you. Yeah, they don't need
They
they
don't have
added
to rush into this.
they added 3 quality programs, 4 with Colorado. It's all been like 2 weeks worth, but yeah, you did what you wanted. The perception of open for business was that they would like pillage the Pac-12 in some way.
No.
Guess what? They did it. Whether that was the full or partial intention, Brett Yormark said no. It just meant lots of different things. But let's be honest, the main thing was like adding Pac-12 teams, it feels like, right? And they did it. They added a third of the league, Spence.
I'm not going to give out spoiler alerts for the latest Mission Impossible, okay? But
Go see it if you haven't. Like, it's fun.
it's been out long enough that I can give a hint to some.
Is the statute of limitations up at this point?
Okay, there's a character that seems to know things that are going to happen before they actually happen.
Yeah.
It feels like Brett Yormark is that guy.
In these
Like,
parts, we call that a seer,
He
Spence.
received a message, and it was like, okay, you're not going to go exactly, the word you used was pillage, and you're just going to rip apart the conference. But these teams are eventually going to become available, and you can decide to welcome them if you want to or not. I just, that's what I thought of
Indeed.
last night. Like, he knew, he was just waiting for the dominoes
Just
to
waiting
fall,
for that crappy
and then-
TV deal
Yes.
to come to a head.
Yes, you can join too.
Yep.
Yes, let us extend the hand of mercy.
The Big 12, like the biggest thing that ever happened with the Big 12 was that they added the 4 that they added when they added them, and then they went out and got the TV deal early, because then the Pac-12 was in trouble. They were never going to get that kind of deal.
If you want to establish your league's credibility and you want to be sustainable and you want to be firm, a firm foundation, which resonates with this crowd,
Yes.
you go get a grant of rights immediately. And that was priority number 1 for Brett Yormark.
And it changed
Everything. It changed
It changed
everything.
the fortunes of BYU and Utah. Crazy, right?
You're done for now. Let's wait and see what happens with the ACC in the coming years.
For now, like FER, for now.
For now.
We did sub 4 Santa in high school, but they spelled out this time that said FER.
Oh, yeah.
Sub 4 Santa.
Solid.
Yeah, awesome.
Solid.
Utah for you. Sloughing. Topic 2. How big of a deal is Quez Glover entering the transfer portal, and where do we sit with BYU men's basketball right now with everything going on?
I would love to just be able to gloss over this and be like, BYU will be fine. But I mean, I spent some time with Mark Pope and Leanne Pope on Saturday night at a dinner and had great conversation with them. And Mark's energy was really good in spite of having a difficult weekend, and learning that he was losing Quez Glover to the transfer portal. He knows it. We all know it. There's no easy way around losing a guy you expected to be your starting point guard when we're in August. What do you do now? It's not like there's just a ton of other point guards out there in the transfer portal available. that you
Right
can be like,
now.
well, yeah,
Waiting.
if Quez left, let's just go get another 3 or 4 star point guard. It's all
Yes.
good. It clearly doesn't work that way. The options are very, very limited. In fact, BYU now has 2 open scholarships. They still need to hire an assistant basketball coach. And their director of basketball ops just left. Bobby Hordusky left. And they're supposed to go on an international trip. There's
Next week.
There's a lot happening, and there are some notable vacancies. Most recently, now your projected starting point guard, who's not going to be with the team on that international trip, to bond and spend some more time in the gym together and just come together as a team. So, yes, it's a big deal. Now, whenever somebody leaves or somebody gets injured, there is greater opportunity presented. So BYU fans, I hope you're ready to embrace Dallin Hall as your number 1 starting point guard for the opening Big 12 season.
He might have been the starter with Quiz Glover on the roster, Spence.
It
Like, he
is
could have won the job.
Dallin Hall's show for sure.
Yeah.
And now Trey Stewart moves into the backup point guard role. So, I mean, young guys still, both of them, both sophomores, but it is the Dallin Hall show followed by Trey Stewart.
Yeah.
There's nothing easy about losing a guy that could have been your starting point guard the August before your season starts a couple of months away. Come on, let's be real. So yeah, it was a tough weekend for
Be real?
Mark Pope.
Is it time?
It was a very, very tough, challenging weekend for him. And not surprisingly, the people that he was addressing, he spent time talking about Dallin Hall and Trey Stewart because he knows that they're going to have to step up and fill the void by Ques Glover.
Yep.
We'll see if there's something BYU could potentially add. I don't know, maybe they promote from within and they give a scholarship to a guy that didn't think he was going to have a scholarship.
It totally could, but
I don't know.
It's tough. Okay, two thoughts real quick. Ques Glover becomes the new Devontae Henry Cole. I played college football 2014 last night, and I was reminded that Devontae Henry Cole
was on BYU's
roster, and then he didn't end up playing. And then the idea that you have 2 scholarships sitting there, that's very concerning. You need all 13. You need quality. You need to walk in, full bore there, and BYU's not at this moment. Hopefully they can find somebody, or 2 people. At this point, it's really tough. And then that third assistant coach, that's a new thing.
Yeah.
So that's an ad, not a big deal there. Director of ops, yeah, got to find that person. Strength and conditioning was just added, which is cool. More on that new hire in a moment.
Yeah, that's a big-time hire.
Yeah, and then this group definitely needs this international tour to come together because they're facing the most challenging basketball schedule in history by far. Like in football, we're like thinking probably it overall, but in basketball, it's like no question.
Yeah, there's just no way around this without saying, okay, it just stinks.
It stinks. And NIL is unfortunately the cause of this one, it sounds like.
And that's tough because
tough.
BYU's trying to compete in that arena, but BYU, just by nature of the school and the code of ethics and everything that goes into it, they don't operate like other schools. It's not just as fast as like saying we're throwing out a number. Like, it doesn't work that way at BYU. Everything's got to be approved. It's got to come through channels. It's got to be guaranteed. And they do this to protect the athletes. They do it to protect the athletes and the coaches so that when they say, we're going to do something for you, it absolutely is going to happen.
We will do it.
Right? And then you don't get into trouble. But
false promises.
It takes a little bit longer, and that's tough.
Yep.
Right? It just doesn't happen fast.
You just got to probably get better in this space to compete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Mark's words, he said in this instance around Ques, he said, we failed. We failed to make this happen, and we've got to make changes. Now, what are those changes?
He's not talking about the team. He's talking about everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a collective group, right? As
collective being the operative
boosters
word,
and the Royal Blue Collective. We got to figure out a way to, when these offers start coming in last minute, to match that and keep a guy here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's tough.
The new era.
Indeed it is.
New era.
Our question of the day as we move from basketball back to football.
Yep.
Well, frankly, this is all sports because it's the Big 12 Conference. Would you like to see the Big 12 expand beyond 16 teams, or are you good for now? Our Matthew Salt _TX on Twitter says, yes, get Louisville and Pitt for their rivalry with Cincinnati and West Virginia.
That'd be great. They plug into the region there, a little more East Coast influence. Now, because now the East side is the sort of like barren wasteland of Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF. And then it's like, well, you got to go a ways to get to everybody else. Now the West, it's like, oh, we got Utah up the road. We got Arizona State. Like, awesome.
That
Colorado.
would be fun.
We have 5 in the sort of intermountain West, if you will, again, and then down in the desert. Like, oh, we're not alone here. We were alone literally until 2 weeks ago.
I saw somebody suggest Louisville and Pitt and then NC State and Florida State to
I'd love it.
help out the UCF area.
Like, if you told me, hey, in 4 years that's happening, I'm stoked.
Yes.
Miami would be fun too. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Matthew Stahl continued, by the way, unless you go to 10 conference games, 18 feels like the biggest number you can get to and still feel like a conference. Anything above that, and you will have schools you only play every 3 years or so in football.
True, if you like that continuity.
But it's 20 too many.
But it's like risk. Again, I love risk in this conversation. But like, yeah, you gather until you can overwhelm the opponent. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Hashtag BYUSN to join the conversation.